Okay, we're right on time to start at 3 o'clock, and if any of you have any trouble with the audio or the video, let me know, please, if you need me to do something. We're going to take a look at what we consider to be the top 5 trends in ERP and accounting software, and this is sort of the agenda. I thought we would start with a little introduction to who Data Guidance Group is and where this data came from. Then we'll cover the top 5 trends. These are the top 5 trends that we see out there. Cloud computing, mobile applications, social ERP, data integration, and more or less DIY. Then we'll cover a few more trends that I think we should just mention quickly because other people might argue that these should be in the top 5. And then finally, we'll take a look at the implications of these trends for business. So Data Guidance Group was founded about 22 years ago. Our focus is business software implementation, support, development. We do both off-the-shelf software and software development. And one of the unusual things about us is that we're all business people as well as technical people. So our lead programmer has a degree in supply chain management. We have a trainer that worked for 20 years at a publicly traded company, and I'm a CPA, so we all kind of understand the business side of things. And we do support products from multiple vendors. I'm going to be showing you several different screenshots and things like that that are multiple products across the spectrum. So let's take a look at where we actually got this data. We looked at various internet sources. There's several people out there that have written a top 5 or top 10 projections or top 10 things that are going to happen in the next year. We have some data from Microsoft. We are a Microsoft partner, so you'll see some of that. We have some Sage partner data. We're a Sage partner. You'll see some of that. Gartner studies are out in this area, and we'll show you some of those pieces of data as well. And then we have some white papers that we've collected from other ERP providers that we'll show you some data from. And a lot of this is from our experience in the marketplace, and maybe some of it is my opinion after almost 25 years of working in the industry. So let's start out with cloud computing. And cloud computing, we talk about really 3 different acronyms: IAAS, PAAS, and SAAS. So let's kind of talk about what those are, because all 3 of them have an impact on ERP. Infrastructure as a service is really the most basic cloud model. In infrastructure, you pay someone to maintain computer hardware and communications for you. So what you buy when you buy infrastructure as a service is a computer running Windows, Linux, some version of software sitting on the internet somewhere where you can access it in the cloud. This is typically included in other services, so you won't typically see people do this individually, although if you have all of your own software, all of your own applications, and you just want to outsource the hardware, this is what you would call it. Some examples: Rackspace is a company that does virtual, quote-unquote, computers, and all you get is an operating system. And Windows Azure virtual machines, you may be aware, Windows Azure is basically Windows Server in the cloud, and they make available Windows Azure virtual machines, which are just Windows in the cloud and nothing else. The platform as a service is infrastructure as a service plus perhaps something like SQL Server or a web server, or you might even consider something like SharePoint or Exchange as platform as a service. All of that being in the cloud, so you can use that without having to actually have it physically present in your local environment. Some examples: the Google App Engine is basically this. It's a set of tools that you can use to build applications. And there's another Windows Azure service that's Windows Azure SQL Server, which is SQL Server on a Windows box sitting in the cloud somewhere that you can access. And finally, software as a service is what we're beginning to see ERP move toward. Most commonly, you'll see this referred to as on-demand software. And simplest way you can say it is it's rented software on a server with everything you need to support it. So a good example of this might be something like Sage ERP hosting, where for about $160 a month a user, they will make the Sage 300, used to be called ACPAC, available to you in the cloud. Microsoft Dynamics NAV hosting, somewhere around $145 a month per user, some less, some more. Salesforce is a good example. There are paid versions of Sugar CRM. If you're familiar with Sugar, then you know there's also a community edition, a free edition of that, but there's several paid levels as well. And the new Microsoft Office 365 is also software as a service. Office 365, probably the lowest level that makes sense for business is what they call E3, which is access to SharePoint, an Exchange server with a mail logon, and you can point your email to that server, and the ability to access Microsoft Office Professional and download it to install on your computer. That's a monthly service. It's $20 per month per user. So I'll give you some examples of software as a service. This is one of the things we think you're going to see increasingly in the ERP market space is vendors offering software as a service, some of them rather than on-premise deployment. Most of them in the beginning are going to offer what they call, what a lot of them are calling, on-premise deployment or perpetual licensing, where you buy the licenses as you typically would and host them on your own server. Let me mention another interesting thing. Sage is actually making available a license for their 300 ERP that allows you to run the licenses locally but pay for them on a monthly basis. So for X dollars a month, depending on the applications you want to run, the options you want, you can actually rent Sage 300 ERP. So let's take a look at what this might look like from a cost standpoint. Why would people want to do this? So if you take a look at on-premise deployment, and this is based on 10 users, as I recall, the software cost is going to be about this for Microsoft Dynamics. If you include 3 years of maintenance, the total is going to be this. It's not this plus this. It's another $10,000 is about the second and third year of maintenance. Implementation, you would generally expect to be somewhere, industry studies have said, between 1 and 4 times the software cost, depending on customization, data conversion, training, things like that. You might want a support agreement with your provider. Our lowest level of support agreement generally starts somewhere in the couple $1,000 range. That's unlimited access to telephone support diagnostics. And so you'd be looking at a total software cost of somewhere around $60,000, $61,000 in the first year, and then the additional 10 approximately over the next 2 years. Now, if you look at that hosted, in year 1, your investment is about 15, and this is more than year 2 and year 3 because there's typically some sort of a provisioning, startup fee, licensing fee. Different people call it different things, but typically a host is going to charge $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to spin you up on a server and get you ready with all your licensing and users. And then in year 2 and year 3, you drop down, in an example, to about 12,000. This is the same number of users, 10 users with certain options on them that we looked at in the first acquisition. So you see here that you're actually sitting lower in the 3-year model than you were in the actual purchase model, and this includes the maintenance fees, the ongoing fees that get you access to the new versions. And then if you included a support contract in that, you'd be looking at somewhere around 45 in 3 years. And so when you compare it, 60 for the first year plus 10 to about 45 in a hosted environment, it's really a pretty good deal. This has come down pretty dramatically. Now, a couple of things are not included. In the on-premise cost, which was the first one we looked at, I didn't include any kind of IT cost. I didn't include any hardware cost, didn't include telecommunications, internet connection, backup, installation, any of that stuff. Also in the hosted cost, I didn't include implementation or training in these numbers up here. So you have to adjust these a little bit, and I'll show you another example in just a minute of apples to apples trying to compare different options for hosting. So here's a study that was done by a Microsoft partner asking clients, what is your current usage of the cloud, and what do you think it's going to be in 18 months and in 3 years? And you can see what the percentages are. Now, let me say the problem with this is that when you talk to people about what they're doing now, you're also including things like Office 365, Salesforce, and so on and so forth. So we're not just talking about ERP, we're talking about cloud usage overall. That's the issue with all of these studies. There are a limited number that actually ask about ERP, because I think there are an increasing number of people in the cloud, but I do think it's a lot smaller than those percentages that you saw. So why do people go to the cloud? These are the reasons that they listed in the same study. I think the interesting thing is the majority of people said we can experiment more easily at low cost, and I would add, and typically without a long-term commitment. So in some cases, you can turn on, for example, a Salesforce software as a service or an ERP software as a service, and many times you can choose the length of your commitment from 24 months, 36 months, 12 months. Some people might let you go month to month on that. IT resources freed up to work on more strategic things. You can see them better than 50% are doing it because it lowers overall costs. Now, here's an example of what it looks like if you just include the hardware support, and the software in a projection. And this is 5 users, again with some assumptions. This is actually numbers for another Microsoft Dynamics ERP product. I think this is GP. So 5 users would be this, the hardware, the IT support, the maintenance agreement on GP is 18%. So here's what you would be looking at to actually deploy GP on on-premise servers over a 5-year period. If you look at this on demand, and this is where both the servers, the hardware, and the IT support, and the licenses for the software are rented on a monthly basis, then you would be looking at these costs over 5 years. And finally, another option would be to host the Windows portion of it, that is the hardware and the IT support, and to actually purchase the Microsoft Dynamics licenses or whatever licenses you would be talking about. And you can see that the most expensive in this example is on-premise, the least expensive is on demand. The key to these numbers is these 2 columns right here, these 2 rows right here. What you plug in for hardware and hardware replacement, and what you plug in for IT support. For some of our clients, this is going to be very easy because they have IT support as a service, and they can very easily identify what costs they're going to save. In other cases, it's going to be more difficult when you have on-site IT people that are actually paid a salary that are not going to go away. It's going to be more difficult to do a SAAS cost comparison. Okay, second trend is mobile applications and access. And I think there are 4 approaches that you're seeing to mobile applications now. The first one is a web approach. If you put it on a website, you can get to it with a mobile application. The second one is a special application like an app in the Android store or the iTunes store for a product. Third implementation is an application generator where you get a product that has some pre-configured, let's say, sales order entry screen, but you can also adapt that to do other things. You can configure the tool to give you interface into other areas of the application. And finally, the last mobile approach is integration to an existing application. So you go out, you find a best of class application that's already mobile, and you tie it in to your ERP. So let's have a look at it. You know, web application, this is our website. If you go to our website on a mobile device, you'll see it looks differently. So this is a very easy thing to do depending on the development tools you use for the web. If you look at ERP products this way, here's an example of the Sage ACPAC Sage 300 ERP. If you load the app on a mobile device, you actually access a website that gives you a specific, a mobile-specific application, which gives you access to some dashboarding tools. And this product is being developed in a web-based form. It's being redeveloped, I should say, in a web-based form. So eventually, this is the way they will deploy mobile. Everything will be available on the mobile device because it's a web-based device. The next way of delivering this is with a special app. And this is an application actually for field service that's written to run on a Windows mobile device. There's another version of this for several other mobile operating systems. The advantage, obviously, of doing it this way is that you can take advantage of the local device's capabilities. You can, in this case, you can run a SQL database on a Windows device, and you can synchronize things so that it's available offline. You don't have to have internet access in order to run the mobile app. And the next way it's delivered is as an application generator or configurator. Here's an example from a company that makes a product called Nav Mobile for Microsoft Dynamics Nav. And these are the standard modules, as they call them, that they make available, where you can create orders, look at a customer list, and so on and so forth on the device, pre-configured. But you can also customize. So if you do a lot of job costing, you want access to jobs, and that's not available in the pre-built standard interface, you have the ability to customize with the tool to display that in a mobile format. So some examples of integration, which is the final way of deploying Sugar CRM Mobile. You know, a lot of people say Sugar CRM is out there, it's available, it already has a mobile version. Let's integrate it to QuickBooks or ACPAC or whatever. So there are some pre-built integrations there already. Microsoft CRM Mobile is available in a version called Mobile Express, and this is an example of the Mobile Express. If you're familiar with Microsoft Dynamics CRM, it doesn't look like this on the standard web browser. In fact, it looks like Outlook, except with these capabilities. The Mobile Express allows you to expose the Microsoft Dynamics CRM product as a mobile product, and this is available automatically in the product, no extra cost, just comes with versions of CRM, I believe from 4 on. Another example, there's a product out there called B Mobile, which is for route sales. Route sales meaning companies like potato chips companies, Lay's, that go into stores and actually run a route, and they restock the shelves and fill orders that way. There's also an application out there called Surge Hub that a number of people use. You can take a look at that to see what it is. It provides a number of different features that then an API is available to actually do integration to an ERP application. So this is the fourth way that we're seeing these deployed. Third trend that's kind of an interesting trend is social ERP. And this is an example of a product out there that bills itself as social ERP. It's called Canandy. This is just a screen print from a demo that they have available on their website. You can see here that they have a chatter capability that's a lot like a Facebook status. But the idea here is that we can chatter about POs, we can chatter about product delivery, we can chatter about product development, that we have a device inside our ERP that allows us to communicate in real time, not only within the company, but externally. Now, I'm going to say I think this is probably further away than some of these other things. My look at Canandy, and when you look at this, if you watch carefully, you kind of figure out this is built on the Force.com, Salesforce.com. Salesforce.com has a product called Force.com that's an application generator platform as a service kind of a product. So conceptually, you've got these Twitter, Facebook, Skype interfaces with chat, chatter, instant messaging built in, perhaps telephone calling built in, and the ability to do cooperative transactions in real time. So I can post a request for proposal to a vendor or a group of vendors, and we can chat about it in real time through the application with all of that chatter being, or chat being saved in the application. If you want to know where this is going, notice, for example, that Microsoft bought Skype and Microsoft bought Yammer, two platforms that are being integrated first into the CRM product, and later I think you'll probably see those spread across the application base. So social computing, ERP, embedded within the application is coming. So here's an example of what we might have in a social ERP. We need a new part for the pump. We message the warehouse. Warehouse says, no, it's not available. Obviously, if it's available, they ship it via the order system. If it's not available, then we get a notification to purchasing through the social system. Purchasing then sends it to vendors, again, through the social system. Vendors give responses. We can do different things with these responses. One example would be sort of a reverse auction where we say, okay, we got 5 people bidding on this. We need this part. Give us your best price, and allow the vendors to say, I'll do it for $100. I'll do it for $99. And then finally, you select the product, and everything related to the selection, generation of purchase order, communication with the vendor would be integrated into the application. Let's take a look, though, at what's really happening on the current environment. The first thing you're seeing in a lot of applications is the ability to link documents of different kinds, PDF, Excel, CAD drawings, that kind of stuff, to a transaction in the system. In this case, we've got a sales order with documents linked to it. There's also the capability popping up in systems to send messages as part of notes. You can see this is a note created on a sales order from me to me on 11/6. It just says, take a look at this order. Obviously, it could be from me to somebody else. That would make more sense. And then we're seeing integration of the Outlook tools, the social media tools, the web tools into the actual user interface. This is an example of the Microsoft Outlook interface that's built into the home or role center for Microsoft Dynamics Nav. You can see this is everything that I had on my calendar in my inbox for that particular day. And you can actually click on these and it will launch them out of Outlook to take a look at. And finally, with these notes, what actually happens in the note when it's saved and sent is then this shows up on the home page on the Role Center. And you can double click this and have that specific invoice launched. So what you're beginning to see here is that the application vendors are becoming aware that people need to communicate in real time, not from an instant messaging client over here on the side, but from an instant messaging capability that's actually built in to the software itself. And that we expect to continue with the newest versions of things. Data integration. One of the things that our clients are beginning to do and that we're seeing a lot of talk about is integration of a lot of different data sources. Now, one that's pretty popular is the first one. Let's integrate the CRM system into the ERP system, and probably the ERP into the CRM, so that our salespeople can put orders in the CRM and they flow over into the ERP system. The second item here is something that we're beginning to see in some clients. We're running into situations, particularly in specialized manufacturing situations, where the ERP system is separate from the actual operational MRP, MPS, Master Production Scheduling System. In those cases, we're seeing integration. Our clients beginning to say, you know, if we integrated this, we can make it much better. An example of this kind of integration, there's a product out there called FabTrol that's specific to the metal fabrication industry that doesn't come with an ERP. It comes with export files so that you can export and read into an ERP system. The issue with the export files is that they're more limited than some people might want. So tighter integration with existing third-party systems is coming about. Integration of CRM with email marketing, beginning to see links to things like Constant Contact. MailChimp is another popular email marketing product. And then the full-blown integration, the next item, where you take data from the ERP, what did the client purchase? You put that into the CRM system, here's what this client purchased. And then you say, when the client purchases this, they are a candidate for these other products. So now we need to send them literature on that. So suppose the client buys a pump, that goes to the CRM system. There is a workflow or an automated task in the CRM system that then puts that person on a list for a maintenance plan or for parts for that particular model of pump. And we can do the same thing with websites, where we begin to track actual visits to individual pages on a website and say, when this happens, we want to load it into the CRM system. Then we want to drive some marketing based on the page that somebody hit on the website. So this kind of integration, the realization that data can be combined in pretty powerful ways. You'll see the term, which is part of this, you'll see the term big data, where actually we're trying to use all the data that's available in the market, not just internally, but a lot of different data that's available. The last one, actually I saw this first as less DIY in a white paper from a Microsoft ERP partner. And I specifically looked at it. DIY is do-it-yourself. And the point in the white paper was that this particular company was expecting in 2013 to see fewer companies doing their selections and implementations on their own. What we're seeing is smaller installations are still do-it-yourself. Larger installations seem to be moving to consultants, either internal or external, for selection and evaluation. And we're seeing a lot more organized processes coming from larger organizations. We're seeing fewer, give me a demo, and more, here's our needs analysis. So that's a good thing. On the other side of this is this trend that some of the major vendors in the market seem to have, where Microsoft and Sage have basically gotten rid of branding for a lot of their products and are trying to blur the lines between those products. So yeah, more, less, whatever. What we tend to see in these processes is the core of the process is this: find a list of products, do some demos, and pick. In the do-it-yourself, we tend to see this more driven by a problem. My existing software is crashing, so here's a list of things that I want in my ERP system. In a more formalized large company consultant process, we tend to see a formal needs analysis and some kind of an RFP, whether it's a list of features or a list of processes that need to be automated. The thing you have to watch when you're over here on this side with the DIY sort of situation is that you don't focus on what you don't have, that you also focus on the things that you have that you like, because generally it's not a really good assumption that a new ERP system is going to have everything in it that your existing ERP does, which is what this process over here tends to do. The other thing we see in more formal processes is an actual evaluation plan. So that when you're doing the demo, there's some sort of a checklist evaluation plan that is more objective than just getting to the end and saying, well, this was the one we liked. So I think this is a dual trend. I'm just going to list these others. I'm not going to highlight a whole lot of them except the ones I think that are major. A lot of these applications do not have a real web version. They have something that will run on terminal services under a web client. We're seeing a lot of development of true web tools. There are also a number of applications out there that have evolved over 20 or 25 years. A good example is Great Plains or Microsoft Dynamics GP, Sage ACPAC, Sage 300. And now you're seeing the manufacturers kind of looking at these products and saying, you know, if we're going to go forward, we're going to have to redevelop these in a tool that's a little more modern. Rapid implementation, I won't say a lot about that. This is an interesting one, the return of customization. Really, customization tools have gotten quite good, and it's capable, it's now possible to do quite a lot with very little resources. So that's an interesting thing going on. Open source CRM and ERP. You know, Sugar CRM is quite good actually, and it's available in a free version. There's some ERP systems out there that have tried to be open source. I don't know my evaluation. I'm still nervous about them simply because in the open source community you don't have a vendor to go to. Your vendor is your consultant, supplier, whomever, and the products don't have a polished feel to me, and I don't know how to explain that other than to say they feel a little clunky in comparison to what I'm used to in the ERP space. Implications. This mobile trend and this SaaS trend are related in the sense that people want to be able to work anywhere they are. I think this reduces stress levels because we don't have to worry about getting it done in the office. We can take it with us. If we remember something that we need to do, we can pull out our smartphone and do something in the office with it. The IT resources are, there are a lot of IT people out there, but there are not a lot that are really good. And so I think what we're seeing is kind of a commoditization of IT and the centralization in a few big hosting companies like Microsoft and Rackspace and some others of some really good technical people. Efficiency and effectiveness in every area of the business. You know, we still have clients that use ERP like a glorified adding machine and typewriter. The only reason it exists is to do the accounting function. Those clients are the ones that don't really have scalability with their current employees. They're going to have to add more employees as their sales increase, whereas the clients that leverage technology seem to be able to be more elastic with their existing staff. And these others that you can take a look at in terms of the implications for business. I think overall people are beginning to see that IT, hardware, software, technology, maintenance, employees can be outsourced, that the internet is reliable enough and secure enough, I guess I would say, at least people believe it is, that they're becoming more confident about their ability to put this stuff in the cloud, and they're gaining the ability to access it from anywhere the fact that it lowers cost, if it lowers cost, is often secondary. And we're seeing about 25% of the new clients that come to us looking for an application saying we want it in the cloud. We don't want to look at it on premise. We're seeing clients that are existing clients looking at upgrading into the cloud so that rather than buying that new server farm, which they may need after the recession, they may have delayed it 5, 6, 7 years, rather than buying those new servers, they say, let's go into the cloud with it, we can save some money here. So we think those are the top trends. This is my contact information. If you have any questions, you can certainly email them. I'm glad to respond as well as I can and to tell you if I can. And thank you for attending. If you have any further questions that you'd like to send by chat, I'll hang around for another 5 or 6 minutes. I am going to turn off the screen sharing here in just a second, but I'll leave the application up. I'll leave the webinar session open for a few more minutes.